Hello guys, welcome to another weekly breakdown video. Today I'll be breaking down the second week of September, as you can see, starting from September 16, 2024. And before starting the weekly analysis, let me quickly show you the news, because that is what we do in this channel. First I show you the news, and then, because that's a very good habit to adhere to, because looking at the news before starting the week to trade is very important, or at least the day. So Monday there is no news, Tuesday there is New York news, Wednesday there is both London and New York news, so it will be very tricky. That is how we know which days to trade. According to the news, we can decide which trades are high probability to trade and which days aren't, meaning according to news, that is, right? According to the fundamentals. This is the fundamental analysis. And on Thursday FOMC, on Thursday there is USD news, which is New York, and also GBP news, New York news, which is not at our session, not at our trade timing, so we don't care. And GBP news is on 4:30 p.m. so it is also after our session is over, which is obviously 2:30 p.m. in the standard time, so that's also not a problem. Also on Friday there is London session news, so London session will not trade. So this is the news for the upcoming week. Let me quickly show you the analysis. Now going on the weekly time frame, clearly we can see the supply demands. I have marked, obviously, as how I mark it. It's very easy, and I will make a separate video for that. But in this video it is a weekly breakdown video, so all we will do is focus on the week. Okay, so according to how this weekly candle closed here, it is a bullish pin bar. So going on to the next week, I will be looking for buys, meaning my weekly bias is bullish on GBP USD, which should be opposite on DXY, which will be bearish. And obviously on DXY it is bearish, the last previous weekly candle. So on the next week, anything that is aligning with us being bearish, which will be considered as higher probability. DXY is bearish, GU is bullish. I've also written it. So that is when I go to the daily time frame to look for the bias and the trades, because we trade the daily bias. I don't trade, obviously we go and watch the weekly bias, but trading wise I trade the daily bias, because that's where I found the most success in. I trade with the daily bias. If the daily is going up, my weekly bias is bearish, for example, and the daily time frame is going up, and we have a clear zone to trade from, and the trade is happening in our timing, exactly what we want to see, then we are gonna buy. No questions asked, we are gonna buy, because we adapt to the market, we don't predict. Okay, so that is one thing. So there is also one more rule of me that I follow. Going on the weekly time frame, my weekly bias is clearly bullish on GBP USD, right? So I only trade Mondays if the weekly and the daily are aligning. If the weekly is equal to daily, that is when we trade Monday. But on this Monday we can clearly see the daily time frame was going down, meaning the Friday was going down, and the weekly bias is clearly bullish. So that is when I didn't trade it Monday. So not trading Monday literally was in my favor. As you can see, the daily bias on Friday was clearly bearish, my weekly bias was bullish. So we don't know what the market want to do. So waiting for Monday was literally so much a good news for us, because it literally gave us our bias for Tuesday. Going on Tuesday, now we will happily look for buys, continuing with the bias, being bullish on the weekly. And now we will target this liquidity right here, and also mitigate this supply zone right around here. So going on DXY, my bias also, I waited for the Monday to close. Monday closed as a bearish candle, so that is when I look for sells now. And also DXY is now on a demand zone, as you can see, and there is always a chance that this demand zone might get respected, and we can see a potential move from here. And also there is a fair value gap on the daily time frame, and these fair value gaps, demand zones, change of characters, supply zones, I mark it in a way that is very easy. Once you understand the concept, it's very easy. If you want to learn that, you can watch my other videos where I explain about the supply and demand, how to mark them in the higher time frames and use it in our favor, right? So also on the daily time frame, we can see it is making a double top formation. It has broke out the neckline right around here, and we can anticipate a retest and then continue to the downside. That's what a retail trader would say here. But obviously we as technical traders, we as liquidity supply and demand traders, I don't trade that way. I used to before, but I don't trade that way anymore because the market doesn't move due to a double top or a head and shoulders. The market moves due to liquidity, targeting certain liquidities. If we are buying, targeting the buy side liquidity, and if you are bearish, we are targeting the sell side liquidity. The sooner you understand that as a trader, that is how soon you are gonna get results. So in the markets, if you want to be profitable, you have to follow the trend, follow the majority, and trade with the bias, and only make a certain plan. If you want to succeed in anything in life, you have to make a plan. Without a plan, nobody has succeeded in the world, right? You have to make your plan and follow that plan religiously. So obviously we also have to follow our trading plan religiously, and while we were doing that, literally this week was a beautiful example for that. Monday didn't do the trade, right? Waited for Monday to close. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, literally all the 3 days I predicted the market to the T. What I said literally happened in the market. Doesn't mean that I have done something different. No, Rob Dono and my analysis were literally picture perfect. Same you can argue on the live market, which is very, very big achievement, to be honest. Now we can use it as an experience certificate to continue trading, right? It has given me so much confidence. This week alone would have passed me a Prof Firm challenge easily if I traded, but obviously I didn't. Why? Because right now I'm focusing on back testing, I'm focusing on front testing, I'm focusing on gym. So there is lots right now. So obviously I will finish my back testing first, and then I will directly start literally taking it seriously, only trading the front testing. And back testing is very good to know your setup and so on and so forth, but you shouldn't make it your lifestyle. 100% agreed. Back testing is very good, but obviously you should do it. Once you do it, it's enough, right? So now front testing is what's gonna make you money, not the back testing. Back testing is for knowledge purposes. So going on Tuesday now, I was looking for buys. Obviously my bias was clearly bullish, and on DXY I was looking for sells. So that is when I start looking for a buy opportunity. And if I'm looking for buys, I obviously wait for the Asian range to close, and after the Asian range close, I literally was looking for a demand zone. There was no clear demand zones, literally, right? There is no clear demand zones. The demand zone, you can argue, is here on the Asian range, and after that the market literally consolidated here, and there is no clear demand zones. The bias is clearly bullish. That is when we tend to get our continuation setup, meaning we get our setups, which is like Asian low setup. In this case, it was a Asian low inducement. As you can see, the first move happened, took the Asian high, and after taking the Asian high, the price went down again, induced this first position. And you can argue, bro, why didn't you trade it this some demand here? Because look at this, bro. Why do we want to trade when there is so much of accumulation? Literally this is clearly showing me that the price was literally consolidating here. It was not even ranging, it was consolidating. The price was neither bullish nor bearish in this case. So that is when we don't like to trade. But on EU there was other case. Even on EU there was consolidation, but EU was beautiful, right? Asian range, our setup is accumulation, manipulation, distribution. The price literally accumulated here. After accumulating a lot of orders, what did the price do? Went down, swept all of the liquidity from this consolidation period right here, and this is called the manipulation side and distribution. We as traders want to be a part of this distribution move, as you can see right around here. So EU was beautiful. So on Tuesday, if I in the live markets, probably I would have traded EU, because EU was cleaner, and I don't differentiate between EU and GU. Whichever is giving me a clear zone, a clear bias, a clear trade, I am taking that, right? So going on Tuesday, that was the trade for us. And also on Tuesday, was there any news? Tuesday there was New York news, so I traded London. I took a buy position on London, so why to force a trade on New York, right? We have to be very, very smart and very, very patient and very, very perspicacious in the markets. As we can see how Tuesday closed. Now on Wednesday, again the bias is not clear, meaning obviously the weekly bias is bullish. Monday closed a bullish candle. Tuesday was very, very clean. I was looking for buys because weekly, daily were aligning. So many things were aligning in this case, right? So obviously we have developed a sixth sense in the market, which says me that if a trade is strong or not. And in this case, literally on Wednesday, it was not a strong trade for me, to be honest with you. So also on DXY, it was a bullish candle, so obviously I would look for buys on DXY, which would be sells on GBP USD. So but it was not a clear day. Again, I'm saying on Wednesday also there was GBP, CPI news and New York news. So what I did, I just didn't trade it, because whenever there is New York and London both trades, whenever there is London news and New York news both on the same day, that is when I don't like to trade, because obviously the markets are going to be heavily manipulated on the day. And let me quickly show you what happened on the day. So going on Wednesday, we can clearly see the price literally changed character to the downside, change in a state of delivery right here, and you can argue the price went up, swept liquidity from all. What does the news do? After so much of backtesting, after hundreds and hundreds of backtesting, I figured out that the purpose of news in the market is to manipulate the position. There was huge amount of sellers right here, right? Because these were the areas where from the bearish movement started. As you can see clearly, the market was trending bearish from this sort of areas. So what did news do? News came in, literally went up, swept liquidity from all of these sellers, and then it started to go to the downside. So that's also one thing we have figured out through endless backtesting. And if I show you the callouts, which I will, don't worry. So going on Wednesday, the only trade that I could spot right here was after manipulating these orders right here. My bias on Wednesday was clearly bearish, and London session I would have not traded due to CPI, and the only trade that I could spot right here was exactly at our timing, which is 18:30. After this rejection, I could have entered this trade somewhere around here. Maybe would have find some sort of way here, because on New York session there was no news, so that's one thing. So but we didn't do it, right? But I am very transparent with you guys. I'm clearly showing what could have been done better. So Wednesday closed as a bearish candle, kinda bearish pin bar, because the sellers were dominant at the end of the day. And you can argue that now it makes so much sense. Now my bias is again clear. My daily bias is clear, because on Tuesday my bias was not clear because of the weekly and daily were doing different things, and also there was news, right? But now it is clear that the price went up, swept liquidity from this high, and this high, and literally gave us a rejection, showing us, the price is literally showing us that the market has swept liquidity, and now it wants to go to the downside. So that is when on Thursday I am looking for sells on GBP USD, which will be backed up by DXY being bullish. Obviously that's the case right here. The demand zone got manipulated, the supply zone got manipulated here. So the next week is gonna be very, very good to mark new supplies and demands. There I can also show you how I mark my supply and demand zone, so you guys' doubt will be clear. So now going on Thursday, I am clearly looking for sales, because my bias is bearish, because the price has swept liquidity and so much of things happen. And now this is when it gets interesting, right? So now this is the demand zone right around here, higher low, higher high, right? The price went down, literally came down, swept, mitigated this demand zone. Not mitigated, it manipulated this demand zone. As you can see, the Asian range was very big on Thursday. I don't know the reason why it is, but according to the market condition, this Asian range was very big, tend to be 62 pips. Nowadays Trump market, it's normal, but whenever Biden was the president, it was very, very rare. So obviously my bias was bearish, so I was looking for sales maybe from some sort of area. And also on Thursday there was USD news and GBP news on GU. We didn't got the trade, as you can see. Even on Thursday it was a no trade day. So this week was a no trade day for me. The only trade that I could have potentially taken was on Tuesday. As you can see, it was a beautiful trade with our knowledge according to the previous day's volume. And no clear order blocks to trade from. That is when we tend to trade the closest zones or even the Asian range setup with the MAC model. So following that, we could have caught this trade, but throughout the week it is not one of the best weeks, as I have seen better weeks than this, right? So on Thursday I was clearly looking for sales, but buys happened. So now going on Friday, my bias is bullish again because of how this candle closed, and I have to be very clear with it. Went to DXY to clear my bias. What did DXY do? Price went up, filled up this fair value gap, and took resistance from some sort of support here, as you can see, and now it is a bearish candle. So going on Friday, my bias is clearly bearish on DXY and bullish on GBP USD. So on GBP USD I'm looking for buys, and obviously if I'm looking for buys, I'll go to the 4 hour, look for some change of characters or break of structures. which there were none in this case. So we'll go to the H1 again. Even on the H1 there was no supply. Okay, so on the H1 there was lower highs, lower lows, high low, higher high, higher low, higher high, lower high, lower low. Even on the 1 hourly there was no sort of change of character, I believe. Was it? There was no change of character even on the hourly. So it was a very, very tricky week. Overall it was a tricky week. Tricky weeks like this are gonna come in the markets 100%. They are unavoidable in a sense, because some weeks they are just beautiful to trade. Every day makes sense. Every day we get a beautiful trade. But there are some weeks where you don't get a single trade. You have to sit in your hands and you can't do nothing, because you don't move the market. The markets are moved by the big banks, so you have to follow them. Whenever they give us a trade, we take it, we take advantage of it, and whenever they don't, we don't take the trade. Simple as it can get, right? So going on Friday, my bias was clearly bullish, so I was looking for buys. So you can argue I would have entered a trade here, because this was a demand zone. Price went up, literally came down, 15-minute rejection at our timing. 13:45 is our timing, 1:45. So you can argue I would have taken a trade here, maybe. So if I took this trade, it would be a loss. As you can see, it was a 1:1, which is not break even for me. So this trade here would have been a loss for me. So it is not like we don't take losses. We take losses, and those are part of the game, bro. If you want to survive in this game, you have to understand. The sooner that you understand that the losses are part of the game, you are gonna survive in the markets. Clearly we can see this week was tricky. As you can see, our setup didn't show up regularly. The only trade that we got was on Tuesday, which was a beautiful trade. Obviously, if in the live market something like this happens, then I'm gonna take the trade regardless, because of my knowledge of the previous day's volume, and we literally trade according to the volume, according to how the previous days are closing. According to that, I will decide my trades in a sense. So going to the weekly callouts, let me quickly show you the callouts. Going on Monday, my bias was not the weekly and the daily weren't aligning, so we'll not execute the trade. Simple as that. This is why we don't want to trade Monday if weekly and daily bias aren't aligning, because it's very uncertain on that day. Like here on this week, we didn't trade on the Monday, and also the bias. Obviously, whenever the weekly and daily bias are not aligning on Monday, don't trade Monday. Simple as that. As simple as you can get. Tuesday, we were looking for a move from a closed zone or a Asian range sweep because of the previous day's momentum and no clear zones to trade from. This is one of my rules, and this is one of the things that I figured out through backtesting, and this works. I have seen it a gazillion of times happen in the market. And also, don't let others analysis influence your trading, because at the end of the day, you are going to click that buy or sell button, so you have to hold yourself accountable, right? So that is why you don't, even if it's Rob Dono or anyone, you don't have to follow them, because yeah, you can watch what they have done and compare it with yourself, but no, while trading you have to do it yourself, because if you want to be a long-term trader, you have to do it yourself. At the end of the day, always it comes down to you. You have to hold yourself accountable for your wins and your losses. So yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing in the markets right now, and literally it's working. Wednesday there was GBP CPI news, so no trade on London, and New York didn't give the anticipated move, so no trade for that day. Okay, here we know that whenever the Asian range mitigates the auto blocks or manipulates the auto block that we want to trade from, we either wait for the manipulation of that zone or we look for continuation model. In this case, it made sense for the continuation model because the Asian range was very big, 100%. So in this case, literally the continuation model made so much sense because of the Asian range, and that's 100% true. And also, you can argue this demand zone right here was manipulated on this day. And on Friday, even Friday was very, very tricky. As we can see, we were looking for buys. It didn't make sense to buy, so didn't do the trade. Simple as that. So this week was a no trade week for me. I didn't even backtest any trades from this week. As you can see, it was just one of them tricky weeks. But also, every tricky week comes with a good thing also. Now we can clearly see, if you were patient enough to wait for this week, do not trade this week. Now going on the next week, my bias is again clear, which is bullish. Obviously the weekly bias is clearly bullish, but obviously we will adapt to the daily bias and trade according to that, because we are intraday traders. We don't hold trades more than our trade lasts some hours, bro. So obviously we don't care what's happening on the weekly. We care about what's happening on the day-to-day basis, right? So this is a bullish candle, so the bias for the next days are clear. and this week was a very tricky week. Doesn't mean that the next weeks also have to do the same. So let's see what happens on the next trades. Catch you on the next video. Wash.